Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
That's right. Welcome to Whoa, Dad, Go, Dad. My name's Dave Momper. I'm your host. This is a fatherhood podcast for new dads and soon-to-be dads. I'm a new dad myself, and I'm asking every day, great dads, what does it take? What does it truly take to take on the ultimate role? All right, let's get to it. Mark Guay, welcome to Whoa, Dad, Go, Dad. How are we doing today?
Dave, I'm doing well, my man. Thanks so much for having me. And I love the name of the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, for the listeners out there, some people are looking at you right now. Some people are just hearing our voices. Of all the topics, fatherhood seems pretty obvious based on our history. But I just want everybody to imagine us potentially talking about if there's anything else you would be perfect for, it would be men's hair products and swagger, like a swagger guide. Here. Yes, indeed. Let it flow. My fellow flow bro, Mark Guay. So good to be with you. So let me give I'm going to set you up with a little prompt or two to let the listener know about who you are, but
sure.
I'll talk a little bit about our connection. We have a shared professional realm, a little bit similar. And that's what brought us together, and a mutual acquaintance named Kevin. But you and I hit it off in a professional realm, and then realized we had some interesting affinities for professional development, you might say. And now you are really, what I really admire about you is that you have this deep passion and interest and excitement for, what would it be called? It's like human growth, human potential.
Oh, and big time.
How's that showing up? Tell me what you did. Tell the listener what you did, say a week ago, as an example, a weekend ago, and then give us an overview of your professional arena, how your average Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday looks.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. So last weekend, I think what you're referring to is I ran my first actual men's weekend in New York. I, moved recently from San Diego to New York, and gathered a group of men, got a cabin in the woods, had a nice, bougie sauna, and the cold plunge didn't work. And instead we went out into 8-degree snow and did some cold exposure, which was a heck of a lot of fun. And it was a space to be able to really try on a new way of being, really the theme for the weekend was show up in your bigness and let others mold around that, as opposed to playing small and conforming, and instead show up in your full authenticity and try, growing an edge of yours. For instance, one of those edges typically is, what is it like to be authentic and not conform when you're making someone else feel uncomfortable with your political belief or your mannerisms or something about what you consider to be your highest level of integrity. So that's what I did last weekend. Such a good time, such a great group of men. This one was an invite only, and it led to a deeply transformative weekend. We did a plant medicine ceremony on the one day where I brought in a facilitator to help with that. Did some deep connecting bonding activities. It was awesome. That was really enjoyable. A little bit about my background is I've been in coaching now for over 15 years. I started as a USA triathlon coach. I was an elite triathlete myself, qualified at 24 for Team USA World Long Course Championships in Perth, Australia, which is kind of like the feeder pool for I want us to get into the Olympics. So this was the first step to be able to get there, to start competing with other people that are Olympic bound. And that was a pretty big deal in my life. And at that time, I was coaching out of Chelsea Piers in Stamford, Connecticut, and West Side Manhattan. And I got to work with these elite triathletes who are also really type A high performers in the finance industry, in restaurant entrepreneurship, and all of these people that are really high level in their career, also showing up really high level in their athletic performance. So that was my entry into coaching. I really enjoyed it. It was very output focused. It was very alpha. It was like party hard at night and then see you at 5 a.m, for the swim, and you would be, woken up if you weren't there. It was like this real party hard, work hard kind of thing. And it was great. I enjoyed it in my 20s. And eventually, I burned out, and I had a really powerful healing journey for myself. And throughout that journey, got asked by some people to start creating more life coaching workshops focused on your why, focused on your purpose. And then started working again with leaders, but in a leadership coaching aspect, which is where you and I met. And you and I, work with leaders at different companies, mostly culture focused in communications. What I'm focusing on right now is, as a dad, I'm super curious what it's like to both grow a business and be a present father without compromising one or the other. And that's what I'm focusing on right now, is bringing men together for a group coaching experience that's a growth accelerator for one full quarter of the year, and setting goals on what is it like for you to be a full present father, and what's a goal that you have for growing your business, and then letting the group hold you accountable to that high level of accountability. And that gets me really fired up. And I've been really enjoying that, just started doing that last year, and it's connecting with a lot of men, something I deeply want as well. And it brings me into great conversations with men like yourself.
Oh, all right. And funny enough, for the listeners picturing this conversation, I'm looking at Mark Guay in a 2-dimensional capacity, which is the only way I've ever laid eyes on you.
Yeah.
We've not met in person, which is such a funny.
I think you might be one of the only men that is actually bigger than me too. If when we meet in 3D, that will be interesting, because usually when they're like, "Oh, you're a lot bigger than I thought," I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, and I'm skinny."
Yeah. Oh,
and I think you're actually a little bigger than me, so that will be fun. I'm looking forward
I'm a
to
little
it.
heftier.
We'll get together.
Skinny, but hopefully, lean and mean is the name of the game. But I feel a little hefty. I don't feel skinny. I feel hefty. I'm a heftier dude than I'm probably 230 right now, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
But one of these days
weight.
we shall break some bread together in person. And that's the nature of the times. I got a couple really nice anecdotes like that with people I've connected with over the years because of COVID, and also just the accessibility of interesting humans because of social media and the internet and so forth. So glad our paths have crossed. So I'm curious a little bit about, I suppose, as a father, you have a 3 and 1/4-year-old.
I do. Yep. Rowen the Mighty is his full first name.
Say it again one more time.
Well, his name's Rowen, but every night before we go to bed, he looks in the mirror, we do affirmations, and I say, "You are Rowen the Mighty." And that's kind of the nickname that we have for him. Yeah.
How does it, what's his facial expression when you're saying that to him and he's saying that? What's he?
Lately, he's got this cheeky smile that he is starting to do, and it's really adorable. Beforehand, it was more of a, kind of just stare. And then now it's this super cheeky smile, and he kicks his legs, and it's really cute. Yeah.
So as a father and a well thought out man, I wonder what is the meaning behind mighty? Like, if you are bestowing this beautiful mantra on him, I know it's packed full of key attributes and leadership factors, and
sure. Yeah.
Some purpose and some why. What's the meaning, the deeper meaning for you?
Well, I mean, we thought a lot about the name with Rowen. Rowen is a tree, and it's very significant in Celtic folklore, Scandinavian folklore. And it's the tree that when Thor was being swept into the underworld, he reached up and he grabbed the hardwood of the Rowen tree to pull himself to safety. And its roots are known to reach into the underworld, and its branches are reach into the upper world. So it's kind of this, between two worlds tree. And so we thought deeply about that. It's also called the tree of life. And then the mighty just one day just kind of came out, as like a fun thing, and it felt like a warrior type name. But now that you ask me that question, I certainly don't mean in the traditional attributes. When my hope, if I do my job right, and my wife and I, we do our jobs right, it's we help my son unfurl into his biggest way of being, in a way that he knows himself. He doesn't hide, doesn't feel like he has to conform to fit into societal norms. And that's what I mean by mighty. I want him to be a force in the world, because I think that's what we need in the world, personally, but in a way that works for him. And I don't know what that is yet. Already his personality is coming online where, he's his own person, and I'm very interested to keep meeting him as he continues to unfurl into his own uniqueness.
He's a lucky dude to have you as a dad. That is for sure. That is awesome. Tell me, you said you want him to be a force because that's what you think we need in the world.
Yep.
Meaning it's in contrast to the way the world is now. How is the world now? How do you describe it in a word or two?
I think, and I see this a lot. So let me frame it this way. I know the word is conformity. I'll just use that. My formal background is in education. So I taught high school English for 10 years, right? I've worked with adolescents. I know the adolescent psyche very well. And I worked with adolescents for 10 years in New York. And that deep understanding of the education system got me to see just how the effects of conformity play out in one's psyche. So without spending, this could be an entire podcast episode, but I think most of your listeners will probably know that the school design as it is was designed as a factory model. It was an industrial model. It was designed to create really high quality factory workers, what's that?
In a repeatable fashion, over and over again.
And that was needed, and it worked, and that's fine. But it creates conformity. It creates people that are really good at being told what to do and do it, with a bell system, and they check in and then they check out. But what it also does is it really cuts you off from your own authentic way of being, and it forces you to fit within a lifestyle that is not only pretty counter our natural proclivity as humans, what we need as a human animal, but it also doesn't fit into what our society needs in terms of real leadership. And this connects to the global issues that are going on. I mean, you and I work with leaders at major companies, and I have a pretty good pulse of what's going on a macroeconomic level. And we need systems to be changed in a way that not only creates more of a life, not just life sustaining systems for our planet, but life enhancing. And generally speaking, I'm just really curious, what does it look like if each person really steps into their own power in a way that is in alignment, in a way that is evolved, in a way that is, I'm going to use a phrase here called soul embodied, and I can unpack what I mean by that. It's not just a kitschy phrase. There's a lot to it. And so conformity is the word that I see that we need to really break free from. And so when I say a force, I mean, I want him to show up and change the world in the way in which he feels right. That's in alignment with his unique gifts.
No doubt. He's got a good chance at it, for sure. When you were about to say conformity, and you're kind of brewing on it, I was struck by also mediocrity and apathy. Are they within conformity, or are they separate, do you think? I don't know, just wax on that for a second.
I think they're very similar. Yeah.
Right.
But I think what they all do, which is probably the most significant, is they actually pull us away from our own source, our own sense of being.
Yes.
And a lot of my work, when I really tap into what am I doing? What I'm really doing is I'm helping people find themselves, because they've spent an entire life of people externalizing their value and externalizing how they should operate in the world, instead of helping them actually understand who they are and how they operate in the world.
Yeah, no doubt. Deeply who they are.
Then
So I suppose conformity, mediocrity, apathy.
Yeah,
I think of what you just said. You want Rowen to be a force of nature,
I do.
and and I think every single human being is this. They're a life force. They are a force of nature, whether you take agency of that or not. We are forces of nature. We are energy sources, and we can, have an effect on the environment around us and others around us.
Yep.
But something in the system accidentally is stifling that force and in leading to conformity, mediocrity, apathy, or is it on purpose? Do you feel like we're in a world where that's literally the danger? We're going to have to raise our kids in a place where technically the system is not accidentally limiting them, but on purpose. You think it's that bad, or that
So I
real?
don't,
That
yeah,
real?
what you're kind of hinting towards, or at least what I'm picking up from you, is like I don't think there's necessarily malevolent people that are, I mean, I can understand that argument, and I hear that, and I think that might be true to some degree, but really what I see is we're creatures of habit and we don't like change. And so we have these systems that are in place and we just resist collectively any sort of real change because change is uncomfortable. That's more so what I think. And the systems that are currently in place are, I think, retarding our natural evolution as a human species. Yeah, for sure. I'll also say this. We, the systems don't really necessarily enjoy people that don't fit in to the system because it's a challenge to the system. And we can use many examples in recent history, but for the people that really have a different perspective of how to do it, the system doesn't treat them very well. They usually get ostracized, kicked out in a way, or they get completely they get painted in a picture that makes them seem like they're the crazy one.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that all the time, and that's just simply because if you don't fit into the bell curve of what is normal, you're going to be ostracized, you're going to be kicked out.
Who comes to mind? Who's coming to mind for you when you describe that to me?
There's a whole bunch of examples, but like one small example would be look at decentralized finance. And I mean, I very much enjoy. I'm not really that deep into the DeFi world, but I know a lot of people that are, and I'll dabble a little bit. But I find it really fascinating to watch on a macroeconomic power level, like when someone comes out with decentralized finance, that really challenges the nation state. So that's really interesting to me. RFK Jr. running for 2024. It's fascinating watching him. Because he's kind of been made out to be this crazy guy. And when you actually listen to what he has to say, like the guy's got a good argument. He's a very well thought man. He's not crazy, but yet he's kind of painted in that light. Whether or not you were pro-vaccine or not during the COVID pandemic, just the fact of people questioning even wearing a mask, that was like, how dare you? And then they were kind of painted as, I actually had a lot of leaders who came to me that really stand for medical freedom. And they were really scared because they're like, I don't really know if I feel comfortable with this vaccine. But my employer is making it pretty clear that if I don't get this vaccine, I'm out. And they had a real tough time with that. Those are just a couple small examples of, again, it's not pinpointing to one person. It's just the system as a whole. That's just my understanding of how systems work. And we see that in education all the time too. You look at the charter system, and the charter system is just people who have said, hey, I'd like to try something new because I don't think the public school system really works. But if you ever look at what it's like to actually start a charter school, the amount of red tape is exhausting. And you typically, charter schools, they have to prove their worth to such a degree that most get closed down relatively soon because they don't pass. But yet the public system will just continue to do what it normally does without having the same regulatory body. It's a deep shadow in our culture that's frustrating for me personally. Education is something really important to me as my son, gets older.
No. What's your vision for how you would navigate his education and serve up, something that is unbounded for him and yet
Sure.
still foundational, with all these factors in mind? Do you have a plan, at least an initial plan with your wife?
We are playing around with different ideas. I think theoretically I would love the whole homeschooling thing, but I don't personally feel equipped right now to be able to juggle that. It feels complex. And I have no problem with him going to a school that I think is quite good. For me, it comes down to the age group. So my main task right now until he's 5-ish, 6-ish, is to try to maintain his innocence. And what I mean by that is his innocent connection to nature and his innocent connection to himself. And that includes his personality, his emotions, all of that. And so that's key for me. And so when I think of the schooling or daycare or whatever we use right now, that's the main thing for me is that, are they promoting his connection to nature? Are they promoting his connection to himself? Or are they, is the system or the people perhaps, castrating him from his authenticity, or keeping him stuffed inside in a fluorescent box for the day? As he gets older, I like the Waldorf model. There's a lot of pros there. The Montessori model has a lot of pros as well. I'm familiar with that one. I don't think the public school system I think the system as a whole is broken, but there's great teachers. There's amazing, amazing teachers. So if my son, any other future kids go to the public school system, it would be more of a checking in and seeing who the teachers are and trying my best to put them in a classroom where I think the teacher is a great teacher. But it's also around what are the supplements that I'm providing. So school is not there. So there's a little bit to back up a little bit. Teachers have often become the third parent. And in fact, there was once a law that called teachers the third parent. And that law in most states has since been revoked. But there's still that same implicit understanding. And trust me, as a former teacher, that is true. A lot of parents just expect the school and the teachers to basically do all the things that a parent would need to do and talk about all the things that parents should have, the conversations they should have with their kids. That's not true at all. And it doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen well if it even does happen. So my point here is that regardless of the school that he goes to, it's what are the ways in which I'm introducing him to different things in the world, whether that's going on hikes, whether that's teaching him how to camp, teaching him how to navigate the land, teaching him dream work, bringing him around other people that play music and sing and celebrate and dance. Those type of things are far more important to me than stressing out about whether or not he goes to the right school.
What a great reframe. Because I feel we're not practically thinking about Leonidas's education yet, but we are thinking, in general about it, and thinking homeschool would be romantic and beautiful and awesome. And
well, Instagram makes it look super romantic. There's so many homeschooling parents that are selling it on Instagram. I'm like, dang, that looks really nice the way they're doing it.
I don't, it doesn't look easy necessarily, but it does seem like a refreshing approach compared to, if you're heavily wary of the public school system, that's the opposite extreme. Although it'd be really neat to see him in some sort of, nature school. But what I guess what I'm acknowledging is I haven't thought so comprehensively about it. And that's such a valuable reframe to think, well, it's maybe, I'm estimating 1/5 where he goes to school will be 1/5 of his education.
Oh,
right. And
completely.
then,
Yeah.
And
I will say that one of my dear friends who I've known for a long time, former educator as well, he is actually homeschooling his 3 kids right now. And he took them out of school mainly because they were bored.
Hmm.
And he offered to them, hey, would you want to try this homeschooling thing? And the kids love it. And
Hmm.
they are far surpassing the skills and the content that they would have gotten if they stayed in the traditional school system where he lives in Texas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's good to know there's different approaches, and you're also not leaving it all up. You're diversifying. You're diversifying the influence on your kiddo one way or the other. If you're an intentional father, if you're being a true steward of his journey, and it really spoke to me that your main focus is his innocence. That's such a good way to think about it. Just such a
Yeah.
good mindset. You're looking back at a
I
leather-bound
well,
book you have behind you.
yeah, you know me. I mean, I like my books, but this guy's work has been by far the most pivotal in my life. Nature and the Human Soul by Bill Plotkin. And so I'm intentionally using that word too. And without getting too far down the like pedagogical lane or developmental psychology lane, there's a lot of research that talks about child development. Piaget and Lev Vygotsky were kind of the big ones. But then again, there's very little that actually talks about, well, what about adult development? What about further stages of development? Robert Keegan's become pretty popular at Harvard since his work in the 80s on adult development. But Bill Plotkin, I think, takes it to a next level. And he really talks about that there is far more for us to develop as a human being in this life. And he actually even goes so far to say that that our culture as a whole is a patho-adolescent culture. He argues quite convincingly that there's very few real true adults in the world. And how he defines a true adult is one who comes into a relationship with their soul, and their soul is their individual uniqueness in the thread of the world's story. Beautifully poetic, but also profoundly deep. And I've been studying his work for years, practicing it myself. And so when I say innocence, that's because that's what he argues in his first stage of development. That's what he says is most important. And out of all of the people that I've read and researched, he seems to be the most comprehensive for adult or full human development.
Wow. I'm just struck by this idea that the world is run by adolescents, it turns out.
That's what he
And it
argues.
absolutely is.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, just think about the way our political leadership seems to operate, nationally, internationally, even anybody between the age of 20 to 65, 70 in the workplace is prone to operating at that level right now,
Well,
where
this is what I love about his argument, though, is get this. What he's essentially saying is that someone who's 30 years old, who has done a lot of, who has achieved a further development on the developmental wheel of growing up as a real human, someone who is further along in their development at 30 is actually older than someone who's 80, but is actually rather low, pretty low developed in terms of their humanness or their wholeness as a human. That's a pretty wild argument, because majority of our mainstream says the older you are, the wiser you are. And that's true to some degree. But what he again argues quite convincingly is that's actually not true at all in what it means to be a fully developed human.
Right. Wow. I can see that. Yeah, it's not your it's like your developed age versus your
chronological age.
time. Yeah, there you go. Chronological age. I mean, that's for real. And even I would almost imagine the older you get and the extra factor of adolescence is in there, it's like this double-edged negative effect. It's like somehow you end up even more helpless and victim-minded if you don't, right? If you get old and crotchety and never grow up, it's worse than just man, that's fascinating. So okay, you said the word soul embodiment, or soul embodied. And I'm just trying to picture a 30-year-old soul embodied person. If I've been following you well, there's such a person out there that's 30 who's soul embodied, and that person could have a more positive impact on the world. And imagine if the leaders in our country, as our cultural leaders, community leaders, local, national, everything, we're more soul embodied. We'd be in a healthier place as a society.
Completely.
But what is soul embodied? What does it mean to become soul embodied?
So that is a massive question. And there are a lot of things I could say about it.
I give you 3 sentences.
Yeah,
No.
I'll sum it up. And
No, tell me whatever, what's
feel free
worth
to push
knowing from the sake of aspiring fathers, raising legends, and equipping their kiddos to be soul embodied.
Here's what I would say is I'll frame it this way. So, I've done a lot of work in the spiritual communities. I have a following on Insight Timer with meditations, and I lead meditations there. And there is this concept of transcendence, which I'm assuming you and your listeners are aware of. This idea of like, we're all one, right? And the hippie movement in the 60s and the 70s kind of made that pretty popular. And the LSD movement and all that was this whole of this transcendence. We're all one, which is true. And soul embodiment's actually the inversion of that. So it's the opposite move of transpersonal psychology. So yes, we are all one when we dissolve into spirit, and we also are complete individuals. So there's this concept of inscendence, and Thomas Berry's work is what made that pretty popular in the 90s. And so soul embodiment is a lot of what indigenous cultures did pretty well, is they went more into like the underworld. They went more into the individuation. They went more into the deep essence of your humanness. And so what is your unique contribution to the entire fabric of the earth story? And so when you're soul embodied, you not just conceptually think, oh, I'm part of this planet, but you actually understand on an energetic level that you actually do play a key role in the evolution of the earth. That's a pretty deep bombshell to sit with for a moment.
And there's like, take the personal agency to take full responsibility for that role. That's a lot for a lot of people. And then
it is.
I feel like it's also,
it could feel that way for sure.
I feel like it's also a bit faux pas. The individual used to be this highly respected notion, and rugged individualism, self-reliance, being capable and hardworking, excellent, the pursuit of excellence. And now something in our society is like tempting people to I guess leave your individualism behind and latch on to identity politics and these general associations. And I don't know what was the work around being soul embodied. Is it tied into rugged individualism? Is it related? What do you think about that?
Though I understand what you're talking about. And so what you're talking about, what I hear is more of like what's the role that you play in fitting into the group or providing value to a group. Rugged individualism kind of will only get you so far when, like, as men in particular, we got to get better at asking for help. We have to work together. We have to be part of a team. That's a little different. What I'm talking about more so is coming into a deeper understanding of your own essence, your own unique story and what inspires you, what actual gift you're able to provide. And it's always very nuanced. It's always mythopoetic. There's a bit of a mysticism behind it. And there's a lot more I can say about it, but it's coming into a deeper relationship of who you are, what makes you tick, what inspires you, why that matters to you, and what are the skills that you have, and contributing them in a way that is a life enhancing way of living. And that could be the way in which we as coaches show up. I'll give you a small example, right? When I say like a soul embodied or a soul gift, what I mean is this: for myself, because of my story, because of all the things that I've worked on in my life as of right now, I can walk into a room of leaders. I can see a disagreement between the two of them, and I'm able to win over their trust and permission create a actual cohesive room that allows for a meaningful conversation, and I'm able to actually help spark meaningful dialogue between the two of them. And I'm able to help them lower their defenses, come into real meaningful communication in a way that's non-reactive and yet proactive. And it's helpful for them not only as humans at work, but also it helps the business as well. That's one small example of how what I would call to be a soul gift. And that's my short answer to the question.
It's your soul embodiment.
Yeah.
Contribution. Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I feel like you're getting better and better at this every day and over the years. And I just picture us 10 years from now, chopping up our careers and the angles on fatherhood and whatnot. It's going to be, it's going to be fun to follow your journey further.
You're doing it right now too.
Yeah.
You're leaning into this podcast, Whoa Dad, Go Dad. It's not clearly connected to money-making business. It seems like it's stemming out of this curiosity about being a better dad. And I would say what you're doing is you're contributing to a movement that our culture very much needs, is more men talking about how do we level up what it means to be a dad, and just starting a meaningful conversation. That spark, that's a force of nature, 100%.
Yeah. Glad you see it.
Yeah.
Here we go. It's coming. Okay. So tell me a little bit about this reply you gave me. Has me thinking. I'm trying to think about what you've just said to me leading up to this point with soul embodiment, equipping our kiddos and the future with agency as opposed to conformity and so forth. But I had asked you as we prepared for this a question, which was, what does it mean to be a legendary father? And you wrote, to model growth, because, and you quoted, what a father cannot access within him, he cannot pass on to his children.
100%. Yep.
What are you, if you were to like distill it into 3 or 4 key things that you feel like I want to pass these things on to Rowen, and you got to access them within yourself. You're either working on that or you've achieved that. But what are the 3 or 4, maybe there's more, maybe there's less, key attributes of being a great human being, being a soul embodied human being that you feel like you're serving up to Rowen early on?
Well, let me first unpack that, what I meant by that, right? Because, and here's a good book just to recommend, The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell. If you haven't read that, I highly encourage you to check it out. His research is phenomenal. But there's a serious issue or problem going on with boys. And, you know, I could wax on about the research there, but boys are failing in school. We're seeing, I think 99% of school shootings, I think everyone except one of the first has been a boy, an adolescent male, who has chosen to use violence to create a name for himself, and then by extension also end his life. And when I see that, what I see is someone who's deeply hurt and wanting to be seen and heard. I had a former student of mine, it broke my heart. 6 weeks after he graduated high school, he committed suicide. And that rocked me. I mean, Kate, my wife, Caitlin, she came out and I'm weeping on the couch, weeping. She's like, what's wrong? And I, mentioned one of my former students, James, he committed suicide. And I felt tremendous guilt because I had left. That was the year I resigned. And I resigned halfway through the school year. And so I had to do a lot of work on myself around, geez, if I would have stayed another 6 months, would I have been able to be there? Because I had really created a rapport with him. And this is what I did in my job as a teacher with a lot of adolescent boys. I created this rapport because I knew that they were struggling. And I had another student who died from heroin overdose because he was addicted to opioids in high school. My point is there's anecdotal stories from my own life and also a tremendous amount of research that shows boys are struggling. Boys become men. These men are struggling. and 70% of suicides are, I believe, white men. You know, quote me on that research. And so, so my job, what I feel is to model growth, because what father cannot access in himself, he cannot pass on to his kids. And I hold that to be true. And I think one of the issues that we see a lot of boys really struggling is because they haven't actually had a man model what is it like to struggle without drinking or working or just avoiding it. What does it actually look like to process an emotion, not just be a reactive asshole or to drink it down or to be aggressive, but what is it actually like to transmute anger into awareness? What does that actually look like? That's been lost in our culture. What does it actually look like to grieve? We have a culture that's so fucked up that during a funeral, we say things like, way to keep it together, stay strong. That is so adolescent. What that says is grief is actually not valuable, but real deep transformative grief is unraveling. You have to dismember yourself to then remember a new self, to become more whole through grief. And Martin Prechtel's work talks about that in Mayan culture. That's to grieve is to praise. So what I'm saying here is, as a father, I'm curious about, I know there's a tremendous amount of me to work for, a tremendous amount for myself to work on. And I want to model that for my son. So I want to make sure throughout my entire life that I am constantly modeling what it means to identify something that I want to grow into and to go through the learning process, which is challenging, embarrassing, rewarding in the end. And I want to model that. So whether it's a skill, I want him to see me do something new, whether it's an emotion for me to try to feel more deeply into. The easiest way is I take a look and I go, what am I afraid of? What am I really afraid of? Like, I could talk about fear in a sexy way that sells, a speech, but what am I really afraid of? And am I going to model for my son what it's like to actually walk into that cave of fear, do my fucking work, and then come out transformed? Yeah, I'm going to do that. And
Right.
That's the challenge that I'm holding myself accountable to.
And for him to see the full hero's journey and to watch his father experience the full hero's journey in those moments and those challenges is going to be versus us raising kids and just putting on this front of perfection or of endurability, as though there's no, like, they to iconize yourself in your children's eyes is not valuable, right? It's more valuable for them to actually see the hard tribulations and to watch you overcome them, because they're almost emulating us.
They are completely emulating. And here's the thing, Dave. Let's just use, for example, let's say you want to actually, like, there's something that you want to say into the world. There's a speech you want to give. Let's just use an example here. But you're actually afraid to share it. You're afraid to actually share that message with the world for whatever reason, whether it's to be, for whatever reason. If you haven't figured out what are you afraid of, worked through that fear, and then worked on the skills to be able to deliver that message to the world, how are you expecting your kids to do that?
Yeah.
They're going to model what you do. And if they see that you equivocate and you conform all the time, and then maybe behind closed doors, like a lot of people do, they'll say what they really feel, but you don't actually express that in the external world, they're going to learn, okay, I need to hide my real self and not be authentic outside. And they'll learn the masking to kind of close the loop on what we've been talking about earlier with conformity.
Yeah. And then that just instills apathy, and even like what's the right term, where you're just constantly, you're almost like behind closed doors, complaining, bitching, whining, venting, and then
you're playing the victim. With tremendous compassion, you're playing the victim game. Another example is you want your kid to grow up healthy and be strong, but you're sitting here, not working out, making bad choices for your own body, and you want your kid to, and you tell your kid to eat healthy, no, they're going to model what you're doing. So if you haven't figured out in your own system, and I say this again with compassion, I realize my tone feels a little harsh right now because I have a lot of energy behind it. But if you haven't figured out what's preventing you from actually making healthy choices for your body, and you haven't done the work to, and you haven't asked for help to be able to achieve a healthy, I'm not saying a jacked, The Rock type body, but just a healthy, you've lost the excess weight, you're making healthier choices, you're moving your body. If you haven't figured out how to do that, your kids aren't going to either, because they're going to learn that it's normal and okay to be overweight, to be apathetic.
Wow. So Mark Guay has got to this point in his life where he can see the landscape of fatherhood in this way. And then, by the way, very eloquently and beautifully and provocatively describe a way of operating that I love, that I feel like, I'm a just shy of I think I'm a 17-week-old dad right now.
Leonidas Foxton.
And
love that name, by the way. That's such a cool name. Such a powerful name.
Thank you. What's Rowen's middle name?
William. That's my middle name. It's my father's first name.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And when picking names, by the way, did you have a process? Did you have like did you go through, some sort of ritual? I know Rowen spoke to you as a symbol, and then did you get his particular, William also is a family name, so you're kind of like, well, shoot, they work together, perfect, nailed it? Or was there more deliberation?
So the middle name came from the fact my father passed 2 years previous to my son's birth, and in fact, on the same day that my son was born, 11/11 was the day that my father had a stroke 2 years previously. So what's
your father's first name?
William.
Oh yeah, William. Excuse me.
You went by Bill. Yeah.
Yes. Rest in peace to your father, man. I wish it was different, but it's like poetic that your son was born.
Yeah.
On the date. So 2 years later, your son was born.
Yep.
Amazing. And the name seemed pretty straight. I mean, you had to.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a nuance of, being adopted myself. I'm kind of curious about like passing on lineage. So there's that element. And there was also this, my wife really helped me see my father in a new lens, because my father was an alcoholic growing up. It was a very abusive household. And so I did not grow up with a healthy relationship with a father. And he went through AA, and I kind of wrote him off. I didn't really consider investing any further relationship with him. And my wife, she got me to see that he was just a really sweet, funny, caring old man. And she got me to soften a little bit. And he and I rekindled the relationship, and I love that man dearly. And we had, it was the way he passed too, was just, I was there with him. We all held hands. We sang "May the Circle Be Unbroken." We all wept. I was there when he took his last breath. It was absolutely beautiful. And so it felt like a kind of a nod to him in a way too. Like, I appreciate how you taught me people deserve a second chance. And so bringing the name to my son was a sign of respect to that.
It was like a massive gesture of forgiveness and gratitude melded into one. Wow.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Rowen William Guay.
That's right.
So picking a name, interesting.
And then the name was just, we both loved Rowen, and I wanted my wife to decide on the birth. So I said, if you change it and you announce him as something different, that's what it is. But she liked Rowen as well. And
yeah, saying it out. We said a bunch of names that we had on the list out loud to actually hear the sound of them, and to feel what it felt like to say it out loud, and to say it with a middle name. Yeah. To say all three names with our last name.
Yeah.
Think about nicknames, and
a name means a lot. A name is very significant.
Does. Yeah, and I hope, I sense Same with Rowen, but I hope it's a prompt of a possibility. And then you said unfurl. They're going to unfurl into these life forces. So we'll see what it means for each of them. How did the role models in your life, let's call them, because you're talking about William, your adopted father, right?
Yep.
Don't know your real dad.
I know his name,
but you don't have a relationship with him. Is that right?
I do not know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you think through that being such a committed father yourself. I suspect there's some influences there, and how you process that. What's the wisdom and maybe the struggle with that dynamic for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because lately I've been thinking a lot about epigenetics and what is actually passed on through blood. And so not having an active relationship with my biological father has brought up a lot of curiosity in me around what are the ways in which my son is going to come into this world that were manifested through my blood lineage. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Growing up as an adoptee, I never really looked at blood as family. That was always very strange to me. Family has always been a verb. It's not a noun. And so for one to be considered family, it's through the actions. And so I have people that are technically in my family, but I don't know them, nor will I really treat them any differently than a random person I meet, because and on the contrast to that, the people that I call family, those are my family. Those are the people that have been with me, that we have been through things, we have supported each other, and we never needed blood to be able to be there for each other at our weakest and hold each other when we're our highest. So the concept of family to me is very significant, because family and community is really important. And particularly as a father, I am acutely aware of who are the men that are subtly influencing my son about what it means to be a man in this world. And I am already very consciously curious around what is the rite of initiation I want to create for my son, because we don't really have meaningful rites of initiation in our culture. Without going too far into it, you can look at the adolescent psyche yearning for a rite of initiation. This is why typically around 18, 19, 20, you will see many boys in particular go to drugs or alcohol, because in a proper rite of initiation, you have to come to a psychospiritual death and getting blackout drunk, and then waking up and being held by your brothers in like a fraternity. That is a very patho-adolescent rite of initiation, but it's a rite of initiation nonetheless. You have gone to the brink of death, whether it was psychospiritual or biological or physical, and then you have been held by a community of people. Gang initiation is the same thing. That's why there's often fights. You get beat up, by someone in the gang, and then you be loved and nurtured after. It's the same thing. So I am part of the work I want to do in this world is playing a role in co-creating more effective, mature rites of initiation for boys to men. And one of them that's very subtle, but yet very powerful, is when a boy is around, it could be anywhere 11, 12, 13. Typically it's around when they start getting interested in dark. That's when they're ready for the rite of initiation. Like whether it's like a punk phase, like I went through, or a goth phase, or they start wearing black, or they're very curious about their dreams, or they love horror flicks or something. That's typically a sign that the psyche is ready for a rite of initiation. So what I intend to do, and I'm already curating the room of men that I'll invite my son into, is gathering men into a room, exiting the room myself, and telling my son and the men, like, this is a space for my son to ask any questions about what it means to be a man, to have candid conversations, for the men to share their stories, to share their struggles, their anything, whether it's about sex or drugs or anything. There's no, nothing's off the table there. The only rule is I never know what was talked about. And so my son then has an explicit agreement that these are the men that he can count on throughout his life. Whenever he is curious or struggling or just needs help, he knows that those are the men that he can call, and that they will be there for him. And so that's one small element of the rite of initiation that I'm going to do.
Cool. I love how intentional you're going to be with that. And it is a massive void in our world, right?
It is. Well, it's been lost in our culture too. It's not just, it's been generationally, it's been gone for a very long time.
Yeah. And I'm wondering about things we can do individually as fathers.
Well, what about you? I'm curious what you're I don't know Mac that well, but from what I gathered, you guys are very much progressive, very much counterculture, trying to curate your own ways of doing it. I'm assuming you probably even did something unique in terms of your baptism of Leonidas into the world, or your way of introducing him to the world. What did you guys do?
Gosh, the world.
Well, he was kind of baptized into the world the way he came in too. My God,
that's what I was kind of going to say. He baptized by baptism by fire.
Yeah.
So that was, but I was actually, we've talked about, this brings it front and center to me, is doing a rebirth ceremony. We got him home after 11 days.
Yeah.
And then he was still on oxygen for, I guess it was probably, we should do the exact number. So it was probably about 60 days between being in the hospital and home that he was on oxygen support.
Wow.
And it was definitely it was after Thanksgiving, early part of December. So yeah, 60-ish days. And when he took his oxygen off and we could just hold him and look at him with no strings attached, literally, figuratively, with no tubes attached.
Yeah.
That was another iteration of his birthing. But I don't know that we haven't done a rebirth like we could, a true rebirth, revealing to the world. Wow. Although we have toured him around the country now. We've taken him to Wisconsin. He saw all his extended family, just like handing him around, right?
Yeah.
But I do recognize that there's going to be, I had the good fortune of a really adventurous mother and father. My dad's a forester. My mom was the wife of a forester, and effectively a forester and a horsewoman. Did a bunch of adventurous stuff, as his beautiful sidekick. And they would take us into the woods all the time. And we lived in small town America as well. So I got a bit through that, the upbringing with them, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. There were some facets of that transition and that rite of passage a bit. Every weekend we were like collecting firewood and fishing in the creeks and having, just exploring. So good fortune there, but I do see a huge opportunity just for me and Leonidas and Mac and our family to do something, or even our culture, there's like a market opportunity too. One day hosting, father-son retreats or
that's part of my intention.
There's something beautiful about
100%
expanding this conversation and our collective work into that really appeals to me. So
me too.
Let me ask you, really practically speaking, I'm a new dad, and of all things that I could be excited about, knowing that I have a 4-month-old son and he's unfurling. He's like, what was the most exciting revelation you had early on that you were like, this is just the best? And on the flip side, anything for the new dads listening in that same realm as me that you're like, and also be on the lookout for this. So Both sides of that coin for the new dad.
It's the moment that comes to mind for me is almost every morning I would take my son to the ocean, and we would walk by these rosemary bushes. And I got into the habit of, if you pinch your fingers on the rosemary bush and you smell it, you smell rosemary. And so since he was a newborn, I would wear him and I would go for a walk and I would smell it, and then he would smell it. And we did that for months and months and months. And now, to even when this day, whenever we pass a rosemary bush, he pinches it and he smells it. And those are my favorite moments of like seeing him find joy in the smelling of it. And but what was really funny about it is he started doing that with every plant. And I had to kind of teach him, like, no, you can't do that with every plant, because, cactus, for instance, will hurt really bad. But he was so genuinely just curious. And that's my favorite part, especially around that age. It's just, everything is new. And in, the spiritual mindfulness communities, we call it the beginner's mind. And if you want to learn the beginner's mind, go and watch a newborn or watch a baby. Like, everything to them is brand new. And it's really, really beautiful to see. I used to go on these hikes. I used to hike Torrey Pines and I started it many years before my son was born. And on Saturdays, I would gather the men and we would go for a hike. And it was like a 2-hour hike, probably about 5 miles, maybe altogether, depending on elevation. And once my son started to walk, and he didn't want me to carry him the whole time, I learned pretty quickly. I had to go at a different pace because he wanted to stop and look at everything. Everything was interesting to him. Every rock, every pebble, every sound. And, the men that I would be hiking with, they would want to keep at their pace. And eventually I had to excuse myself and say, all right, you guys go off and do your thing, and I'm a father now. And there's a little bit of grief in that. And so that's kind of the other end of the question, because I have had to grieve some earlier friendships. Still love the men, will still talk to them and hang out with them. But in terms of, they're just in a different life right now. They're in a completely different state of life. And fatherhood is a different state. And so I've had to shift now to thinking and acting and being more of a dad. And one of them is the pace at which, the men who are not fathers were on that hike. They, the metaphor is pretty practical. They continue to walk and go down the trail, and I'm still at mile 1 when they're at mile 20. But I'm laughing and I'm enjoying it. And I got to keep checking in with myself and making sure that I'm not comparing myself to them, because they're playing a different game right now. And I got to keep coming back and being that the days are long, the years are short. And that is so true. And already my son is not wanting me to grab him and kiss him and squeeze him and all of those things that I was doing for the first 2 years. And now he goes, no, 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 no. And he, like, puts his arms up, and I'm like, dang it, I just want some kisses. Like, we do this thing. Here's a tip. What I love now with my son, right, is he goes, stop tickling me. And I go, okay. I go, okay. I'm going to stop tickling. I go, but if you want me to tickle you, just say tickle me. And then I'll stop. I'll put my hands up like this, and it'll be like 1 second, 2 seconds. And then he'll get this grin on his face, and he'll go, tickle me. And then I'll tickle him, and they'll go, stop. I'll go, okay, but I'll tickle you again whenever you say tickle me. And he'll go, tickle me. And then we'll do it. I love it, man. It's just so much fun. And I could do that for hours. That's just so much incredible fun. So that's my answer to that question.
Those moments. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, but brother, hold on to these moments now, because I miss it. I really do. I miss. Is he like grabbing your, like, putting his hand around your finger?
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I miss that
fingers.
so much.
He's holding my hands now, and he's just so close to teething that he'll have my hands.
Yeah.
If I were him, he's like holding onto a giant hand, and then he'll grab my hand and put it in his mouth.
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, I miss that.
Little gums just like gnawing on my knuckles.
Yeah.
And I think it's the perfect texture. And teether, because we have these little plastic teethers, and we're like, are you in the mood for this yet? Do you even know what this is? And he's like, and like acts like he's been choked to death on it, and like, okay, so that's not good. But the knuckle, it's adorable.
I miss that so much. And that goes away. So yeah, hold on to that, man. It's so lovely.
Something you just said about, uh, moving on, or you still connected with some of your buddies, but they're in different realms of their journey. It's just,
Yep.
I remember, I'm 43 now. So first kid at 43. A lot of my buddies have already had kids, and a few of my buddies have kids who have grown up and
Yep.
are out of college, believe it or
Right.
not.
Right.
So
Right.
it's quite an interesting spectrum of ages. And I remember losing touch with some of my buddies who became dads, and I
Yeah.
can picture them right now, and like, I miss those guys quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got it. I understood why, but man, I miss some of my buddies, and this has given me a whole new opportunity to connect with some of them, by the way. To have this conversation with them and actually glean some wisdom. So I feel grateful that I'm actually behind them, because I can then glean some insights from them.
Completely.
But I just wonder,
Completely.
you just help me make sense of, of those segues in life that you kind of like, God, I really adored that guy. Where is he? He's doing father stuff somewhere, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing, I don't think everyone needs to become a parent, and not every man needs to become a father, but you can't experience what it's like to be a father without actually becoming a father. And I know there's a lot of men who deeply want to become a father, and they talk a lot about parenting. They'll share things on social media about parenting and all that. And I respect it and I understand it. But unless you're actually doing it, there's things that you just won't experience. There's things that you can't really understand until you're actually in the father seat. And the same thing for their journey. They're on a different journey that I'm not going to completely understand either. But there's a uniqueness, there's a beauty of stepping into fatherhood that is unraveling and amazing.
Truly the ultimate role. I think of all the roles Mark Guay steps into in any given day. And do you feel that fatherhood is the ultimate role?
I was
Out of
told
all,
by the men this past weekend, they said, geez, man, you really hold yourself to a high standard. And I said, yeah, I do. And I do it with humility. Like I mess up all the time. Uh, I'm learning a tremendous amount. But yeah, I see it as the ultimate role, but like I got to do it with a little dose of, humility here, because, oh man, like I joke with some people that I already have a separate savings account for my son's therapy, for when he's going to need it. There's going to be ways in which I'm sure I'm going to mess up that he's going to let me know at some point in time. And I'll say, you're right. I'm going to own it. And that's my work then, to go to therapy with him, or, figure it out together. But I do see it as an ultimate role, more so though as a collective as well. We're at a complete shift of what it means to be human, what our roles are as men, what our roles are as women. And I want to be part of the curiosity around, what is it like to be a father now? I don't got to go off to war. I don't have to go, be the only one that brings the money into the family. I don't have to uh, play a traditional male role. I have information and teachers that I'm able to access that are going to help me grow and expand. So I think it's tremendous fun to ask myself, what does it mean to be a father now? So that when my son considers becoming a dad, if myself and other men like you and other men throughout the world have done their work of expanding what it means to be a father, then there'll be a whole new definition. And that's fun. I really enjoy that.
I like that you're putting fun into the mix. This is hopefully the most, and so far is the most joyful, the most joyful experience there is. And
So rewarding. Yeah.
elevating that role and giving it the credence it deserves is a worthy pursuit. Final question here on Whoa Dad, Go Dad for Mark Guay. Imagine Rowen's 65, he's 70.
Oh, geez.
He's seen the world transform. He's seen himself transform. He watched you grow up beyond who you are, say, today. He watched you become even more of yourself. He's sitting around a campfire with his buddies. You're not there. You're alive, maybe. I don't know. Let's hope you're alive. What are you known for when Rowen thinks about you and talks about you when he's 70 years old?
You know, as cheesy as the answer comes, I hope he is able to just speak that he felt deeply loved by me. Because I don't know who he's going to be, and I want to try really hard not to project any vicarious hopes or project what I think he should become. But I hope that whoever he becomes, he feels that I deeply loved him and supported him throughout his life.
Universal gift. Beautifully said. Mark Guay, thanks for your time on Whoa Dad, Go Dad. I feel like we could go on a couple more journeys together in conversation, so stay tuned for more of that.
Oh, there will be more journeys as Leonidas gets older and Rowen gets older. I'm gonna need some support, brother. So let's keep it going.
I got you. You got me. We'll see you next time.
There you have it. That's been another episode of Whoa Dad, Go Dad. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast so you get the future ones, and please spread the word and post this episode to your social networks. That's powerful. Perhaps the best thing you can do is share this directly with a new dad or a soon-to-be dad that you know personally. Let them know you're rooting them on. And indeed, drop a comment and be really a part of this dialogue on fatherhood with me. Let me know in the comments a question you want me to ask other dads, or just some feedback. How does this sound to you? What's helpful? What stands out about these conversations? I would appreciate that intel as I grow Whoa Dad, Go Dad. I've got many more episodes to come, and I'm so glad you're here. Looking forward to catching you on the next one.
Whoa, Dad, go Dad, here we go now. Oh yeah, the ultimate roll now. Oh yeah, here we go now. Whoa, Dad, go